Xavier is a character that has been polarizing to say the least. It's either you hate him or you love him. There is no in between. This is because his character is supposed to make you feel a type of way about him. This could be good or bad. Some people may relate to Xavier in their personal lives, while other people may just find him insufferable. I personally fall in between these categories because at first, I just wasn't a fan of his character, but as the show progressed, it was made clear by the writers that there are some underlying layers to his character that would be unnoticeable at first glance. This helps in really defining his character, giving him a reason for his personality and overall outlook on life. If it wasn't clear enough, Xavier grew up rich, having the latest technology and gear, making him the most paid attention to kid in the creek. But despite that, nobody really cared about him behind the riches, only ever relating to him because of his wealth. And so Xavier always had doubts about the idea of friendship, because in his eyes, he can never form a true one. His family life wasn't the best either, because he's the youngest of three, where his siblings were making waves in and outside the creek, with his sister Cheyenne becoming the, upcoming king of the creek, and his brother Kenneth being the former king, leaving Xavier with quite the shoes to fill. I'm not going to sit here and try to paint them as bad people because they're not. They're actually pretty nice. Of course, being in the shadows of your siblings didn't help. So Xavier continued to venture onto a search of belonging until he decided it was his turn to take on the throne. In the season 2 episode, Into the Overpass, we see the Stump Cage chilling with the Green Poncho as they talk about your typical goofy topics like if pineapple and ham belong on pizza. I personally am I'm indifferent. I think ham belongs on pizza, but not pineapple. I don't know why. I know it's a very popular, topping on pizza, but I just don't believe it. I just don't support it. But that's just me though. That's just my opinion. So don't come at me at the comments. Moving on. And so Craig is trying to get to know the Green Poncho more because he really doesn't know much about him, aside from what is on the surface. So as Craig contemplates, he ends up shooting one of the Green Poncho's arrows into the other side of the creek. So, the gang has to travel through the overpass into the other side of the creek, to retrieve the arrow. But both the Green Poncho and Craig run into Maya, as we see the Green Poncho take charge, not wanting to have any sort of dialogue with Maya, showing his distaste of Maya, as we get this cool action sequence between them with the choreography of the fight being so well thought out, really highlighting the many talent the animators of this show have. And we just see Craig barely being able to keep up in this fight, so with the boomerang arrow coming back, hitting Maya in the head, they are able to escape, and Craig, being the curious and officious kid that he is, asks the Green Poncho about his past with Maya, and then we cut to a flashback where we see how the Green Poncho and Maya met, or at least their relationship, and what it was like before being, best friends. With the Green Poncho, or Omar, always uplifting and encouraging Maya to never give up on her dreams of getting on the baseball team, really showing a stark difference between the Omar of the present and the Omar of the past that we know now. And so, then as the duo are just chilling and cracking jokes, the boy Xavier calls out for help as he is hanging off a tree, calling for help, so both Omar and Maya rush in to help Xavier. And so afterwards, we see that the boy is loaded, rewarding both of them with squishers, which is this high-end candy of the creek, and him also being of royalty status in the creek as two guards appear before Xavier, showing just how important this kid is. And we can already see just how off this man is as well, on how he immediately calls both of them his best friends as they just met, and he invites them both to his palace. And I just love how intricate each scene and shot is, really signifying how important this place is to the overall history of the creek. As Omar and Maya are getting well acquainted with Xavier, Omar does his typical gimmick to try and lighten up the mood, but once again Xavier behaves in a weird way, questioning why this act is so insignificant to them. And Xavier even says that since he wasn't there for that moment, it should no longer matter, which continues to paint the picture that this man Xavier isn't normal. As the episode progresses, we get to see the current king of the creek being Cheyenne, which is Xavier's older sister. And we can make out the pressure Xavier already goes through as Cheyenne forces Xavier to find a best friend forever that would act as his right-hand man, already establishing just how important being king in his family is. And so Xavier is mad that he can't choose both Maya and Omar as his best friends, but he probably could have, being the king, enforcing a new law, but that's just me. So then he forces both Maya and Omar to duel it out, and to duel with each other and see who could be his best friend. And Omar rightfully refuses, but before you know it, Maya is already picking out her weapon of choice. And so Maya immediately charges at Omar, believing herself to be the one best fit for the role. And so we see that Maya has some stuff built up inside where she just begins to blurt out all the emotions she's been feeling, hinting at their split in friendship. And Xavier is so unhinged, not caring about the implications, but just having a friend. And so Omar wins, but refuses the offer and runs from the palace, leading to his banishment of the other side. And as he runs, he is saved by the former Green Poncho. And we cut back to the present as Craig is just amazed by Omar's story, likewise the audience, you know what I'm saying? Because of just the amount of depth it has. That's how the episode ends. This episode was just incredible, not just exploring Xavier's past, but also the relationship between both Maya and Omar and how their stories are all linked together. And even though this episode delved into Xavier's past, the next one will hone in on his family life more. In the season 5 episode, Once and Future King, the episode already gives us a mystery they string us along for, being who is the Red Poncho, as he shows up attacking Craig and the gang in search of one of the cubes. And so Craig uses his deduction skills with the, high-end drones that the Red Poncho was in possession of to come to the conclusion of the Red Poncho being Xavier, which shocks everyone because, like Kelsey says, how can a kid with no form of athleticism be the Red Poncho? Then we cut to Xavier with the smooth transition to his monologue of what he's been up to ever since his overthrowing as a king. And so we get a flashback of Xavier's past and him being dethroned. And we see that nobody respects him now, even flaming him to his face, which is just crazy. And we just see Xavier's empire crumbling down because he never really had a foundation but his money and rich candy that kept his empire afloat. But once that didn't matter, he didn't matter, and that's where his empire started crashing down on him. Then Xavier is just sulking, depressed about the whole thing, and the animators really cooked with his scene, really playing with imagery of Xavier just being swallowed up by his depression. And as the boy goes through it, his sister Cheyenne pulls up, encouraging Xavier to focus on what he's good at. But of course, he can't really think of something off the top of his head, believing that he's only good at controlling people. And so this man Xavier just spends all his money on drones to make up for his lack of friends, being his coping mechanism. But then he has a better idea, which is to get back at Craig by interfering with his journey to the heart of the forest. And so Bro consults his brother Kenneth to give him some pointers, but Kenneth is, in his eyes, is no help. And it just goes back to what I said earlier about Xavier, just feeling alone, not ever having his siblings to support him, even though I think both Cheyenne and Kenneth are nice despite what Xavier paints them out to be. And so we cut to the gym as Xavier goes in for a punch to Craig's paper face, but ends up hurting himself. And Cheyenne just gives this man the much needed advice of him needing to put in the work to get the result he wants.
Who stuck by my side, I treated like royalty. And for the rest, let's just say I made an example out of them.
Really dropping some knowledgeable jewels here to the boy. And so we get this cool little training montage of Xavier getting stronger and more agile, quickly preparing for his grand return as we get this smooth transition to the present. And that's how the episode ends. This episode did a good job of highlighting Xavier as a character and his interaction between him and his siblings, which paints the picture of their whole dynamic, which is so cool. It's not like his siblings are bad and want to outshine him, but are just supportive siblings that want to help Xavier. But Xavier, being the stubborn and impatient fellow that he is never able to see that. It is understandable of why Xavier relies heavily on his money, because that's the only thing he has that will never betray and challenge his ideals in his eyes, which adds more to his character of being too dependent on his wealth. And it just really adds, and it really pays it off to when at the end of the show, or like near the end of the series, this man Xavier doesn't rely on his money anymore, relying on his friends, both Maya and Omar, and even Craig at his stage, and him evolving and him not needing his money to define him as a person, but him just needing to just understand where other people are coming from, and him also just calling for help at times, and just like letting people into his life and letting people into his overall psyche, because they are here to help him. We see it with his siblings, both Cheyenne and Kenneth, that they do want to help the boy. They're not just this big, cocky, older siblings that think they're better than him. Like, look at Cheyenne in this episode. She wanted to help this boy out. She literally trained this man. So it's not like his siblings are bad in any stretch of the imagination. They are there. They want to help Xavier. It's just Xavier's never communicated that to him. They're not. He hasn't really shown that like level of urgency for help. He hasn't called for help. That's why they didn't really pay that much attention to him. But it is when like Xavier calls for that help, Cheyenne and Kenneth are there to really like help him out and be the older siblings that he needs. So overall, I do understand Xavier's character to where he's always relied on his money because he just didn't have friends to rely on. But as the show progresses, that like whole personality shifts to where he no longer needs the money, that he has his friends that he can rely on, and even his siblings as well. And so man, Xavier is a really cool character, really compelling character, and I want to know what you guys thought about him in the comment section down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you guys so much for the support you guys have been showing me. We're so close to 1K. I couldn't have done it without my Lord and Savior, and of course you guys. I just want to thank you guys personally, and I hope I see you guys in the next one. Peace.